What's happening, people? Welcome to Scarfey Spurs Talk. Here's an incredibly rare solo video that I'll be doing. I'm Harry Scarfe. If you didn't know, I'm founder and host of Scarfey Spurs Talk. I want to make it very clear before we start that all these opinions that I'm going to be saying in terms of who I'd keep, loan, and sell personally, they are my own opinion. They're not the views of anybody else necessarily at the podcast. So, yeah, the podcast here at Scarfey Spurs is all about getting guest views, all about getting your views, which you really do care about. This is just my opinion. But again, I'm not going to pretend to be a know-all. For me, I can't tell you how important it is that De Zerbi gets what he wants this summer. Whether that actually happen or not is another thing. Depends if you trust upstairs or not. I'm personally a little bit apprehensive when it comes to believing all these statements that have come out from non-executive chairman Peter Charrington, from CEO Vinay, come out from the Lewis family. They say the things you want to hear, but just like politics, that's very, very easy to do. So yeah, De Zerbi should be given the keys to the castle, and I think should be given a very similar role to what Xabi Alonso has been given or will be given at Chelsea, and that is the manager title. So you'd think having more power over transfers. But let's waste no time and get straight into it. I'm going to go through every position: goalkeepers, defenders, midfield attackers, talk about every individual, whether I personally would keep, loan, or sell them. Again, just an opinion. I'm not saying that I'm right or anything like that, and then my opinion is subject to change. Absolutely no problem. I accept that. And after that as well, players that are currently out on loan, particularly the key ones, we'll be talking about what I think should happen with them. But again, I repeat, the views are my own entirely. They're not on behalf of the podcast. It's a rare one. You asked for it, and I have delivered it. So let's get into it then. Start with the goalkeepers. So Vicario will come first. I've got them both in picture here in terms of Vicario and Kinski. So Vicario, for me, I'm not going to beat around the bush, and I'm not going to waste a lot of time here. For me, it would be sell. And on this one, my heart and head say a different thing, if I'm honest. My heart says, oh, I love that passion. He's Italian along with De Zerbi. I love that we saw the last game against Everton, gives him kind of big hug or a squeeze, some would say. I love all of that, arguing with Coleman on the bench. And I love Vicario's passion. And I know some people find that maybe annoying about him, but I actually really like that. But my head, and that's what we're going to have to use for the majority, if not all of the summer, tells me he's not good enough. He's not good enough. Sun shot stopping he's good at, but his distribution isn't good enough. And for me, there's a clear difference. So we'll get on to Kinski. There's a clear difference between Vicario and Kinski. I view Kinski as someone who takes accountability and responsibility for his mistakes. I think he's got a stronger kind of mentality. I think Vicario is more interested in the blaming game around him. Sometimes maybe he's painted that too much. That I don't think it's what he's thinking about all the time. However, Kinski's got an incredible attitude, and I think is always looking to improve. Is Vicario looking to improve? I'm not sure. So yeah, for Vicario, I'm not sure. What I mean by I'm not sure as well is I just don't think he's a top six goalkeeper. And I don't mean that in any disrespectful way. Of course, he's good enough for the top flight. I'm not going to be one of those Spurs fans that will go, "Oh, how's he a professional footballer?" or "How's he playing in the England top flight?" Because that isn't fair on the individual, and it is not fair on the club who've signed him. He's just not what we need to go to that next level. He's not Donnarumma. He's not Raya. He's not that kind of equivalent. And I think Chelsea have a very similar problem with Robert Sanchez, because Vicario is okay. He's an average goalkeeper, and so is Sanchez. They're okay goalkeepers. If you take away the top six, they'll be viewed as quite decent, if not good goalkeeper, but they're not what you need if you want to progress and go to that next level. And for what we can and hopefully will achieve under Roberto De Zerbi, we have to cash in for me on Vicario. And we chose a cheap option at the time. I think we have paid the price. We have David Raya there. And while Vicario was, I still think, okay value for money. It's really good buy in terms of 17 million. Be interesting to see how much we get back from that. I don't think it'd be too much more, if it is more at all, to be honest. So Vicario, I will say sell. And Kinski, I would say keep. I've been really, really impressed with him. For me, I don't think we should be thinking about goalkeepers now. You've got to, for me, put 99.9%, if not more, of the time, attention, focus, as well as money into that forward line, where I'd argue we need all new player in each position. We need a right winger, left winger, and striker, I view. So for me, there's no benefit in going and spending a load of cash on a goalkeeper. Kinski, I'd put my trust in as number one. I really would. Why fix something that's not broken? But I recognise if Vicario goes, maybe you need to bring in somebody anyway. Even Austin's number two, for whatever reason, again, you're going to have to probably bring in someone for a third keeper. Do you promote Luca Gunter? All these conversations. I wouldn't be opposed to, not kind of phrase the false keeper, but if someone maybe a little bit of experience nearing the kind of last 5 years of their career, I'm not saying Nick Pope, but someone like that as you have maybe as a backup goalkeeper, for example. But Kinski I'd have as a number one, so I'd keep him. So out of these two here, Vicario sell. That's the first sell of the day, and Kinski keep. Brandon Austin then. In my view, whenever he's been called upon, whether he's been relied upon, he has produced, and I feel for him because he put in a really good performance. For example, not long ago, really good performance, and then Kinski, boom, who signed instead. So he must be thinking, I put in a good performance, and you still press ahead with a goalkeeping signing, and I fall down the pecking order. Austin, for me, I think you have to say to him, you're your second goalkeeper next season. That's the plan anyway. Or I think he may consider to leave. And I get you have a luxurious life at Tottenham with the wage, and Whiteman had it for so long. Of course, now retired. To take up photography, which is interesting. But with Austin, I mean, I think he can go and get first team football, even like League One, quite easily in Championship. He can still probably get some really, really decent minutes and probably be a first goalkeeper somewhere there. And I think he's actually decent. So, and that's my argument with a lot of these things. I said the same about Dane Scarlett. Whenever he got the opportunity, he looked good to me. So why did he never get that opportunity after impressing? That's what I don't understand. So if it's down to me, I would keep Austin and I'd have him as the second, probably second goalkeeper, but it's definitely no lower than third. So yeah, out of the goalkeepers, to summarise, I've gone with Sel Vicario, keep Kinski, and Austin. Onto the defenders then. This will be interesting. Christian Romero, Cootie, a player painted often as this aggressor by, I think, the football media and by other fans. And by selling him, do they win that argument? Do they win that debate? Quite possibly, but we can't be thinking about that. We've got to be doing what's best for Tottenham. And I believe we took go on to it a little bit later, but with the signing of Senesi on a free, I think we've got a lot of centre back cover. I have full confidence in Danso, full confidence in Senesi. Again, we'll get on to it later, but Luka Vuskovic is returned, whether he stays or not. So I think we're in a position where we can, at minimum, listen to offers for Christian Romero. And I believe we've conceded too many goals. I don't believe the defense is the problem, but I would sell Romero, but I'm not what I'd call Romero hater or anything like that. And I just don't think he is quite captain material. I think we saw what happened the last game of the season. Maybe some people went on about it too much, but my view is I love Romero. I love the aggression. I love the way he plays football. And you kind of do need to replace that. You do need to replace his progressive passes. But I think now is the prime time, the perfect time to sell Christian Romero, I think, and get good money. Again, depends on the offer. If you're only getting, even I would say 30, 40 million, I think you have to keep Romero. But again, it depends, like if you double that, and then again we're having different probably conversations. The money's not going to be in many places this window, and what I mean by that is I think again we're going to see another window where the Premier League massively outspends pretty much anyone and everybody. But I think the gap's going to get bigger this year. So if Spain, Italy come in for Romero, I don't think the offer's going to be big at all. However, if whatever reason a Liverpool or a City, whoever it may be, even the United want Romero, then there's be more money in it. So we'll have to see. And I don't think Romero would want to stay in England, though, if he had to leave Tottenham. So it's interesting. I think Romero, this will drag on all window. I would sell. Don't think we can afford to sell both of our centre backs, but I think I would sell one also to generate the funds to bring in players in other positions. We're strong in the defence, but if you said to me, Harry, I had no choice, right? No choice. And for whatever reason, if Vuskovic is sent back out on loan, or for whatever reason, Senesi somehow doesn't happen, or it goes wrong, or he's not as good, blah, 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 then of course you have to keep Romero. But I think we're in a position where we could have centre back depth, and you don't want to end up with a saturated defence. And what I mean by that is lots of centre backs and potentially lots of fullbacks, because we currently have a saturated midfield, and that's something I'm keen to address today. Moving on, Romero, this is the time, I think, now. I don't think we're going to be able to get any higher value like in future windows than now. Now is the time, and we're in the privileged position to be able to do so. But again, I'm not a Romero hater. I'm not going to be cursing and swearing if he stays, because I love the player. I just don't think he should be Tottenham captain. Again, I'm not selling him because I don't think he's good enough. I'm selling him because I think he's of the benefit of everybody, himself included. And that moves me on to Mickey van der Ven then. And I hold my hands up to an extent. I really do. I apologise to him because I've questioned his leadership qualities when he blanked Thomas Frank. What have you thought of him? I don't think it was right to do of a manager when he didn't applaud the fans. But the way he stepped up with Romero, being out ultimately, and Van der Ven, boom, taking that kind of captain's armband, if you like, embracing it. I thought it was really good performance-wise and leadership-wise, Van der Ven, that last stage of the season. There's no doubt about his quality. I still think he can get better, to be honest with you. I still think there's areas of his game we think, oh, Mickey, we can still improve you, and that's the exciting bit. But we can't sell Romero and Van der Ven. It's too big of a turnover for me. So I would keep Mickey Van der Ven, because again, I believe that his value can still be raised. We paid a lot for him at Wolfsburg. Was it? I can't remember, 45 million, 40 million at the time. It was an awful lot, but we knew what he could turn out to be. So yeah, Van der Ven, there was times, if you'd asked me in January, I would have gone, do you know what? There's a possibility I would sell him in the summer, but my opinion's changed on that, and I can accept that. So I would keep Mickey Van der Ven. I wouldn't make him captain, but I have no problem with him having a leadership role. However, I would prefer him, to have maybe a slight contract extension without that leadership role. That's what I would opt to. But again, no worries of contract when it comes to our defenders for now. Anyway, Raju Dragusin. I'm going to make that the third sell following Christian Romero and Vicario of the day. Not the centre back we were sold he was going to be. Listen, his agent's a big problem. You can't just get rid of a player because of an agent, but it does affect the football club. When you got an agent saying that Tottenham are a stepping stone, that he should have chose Real Madrid, that he will choose Real Madrid, is stepping stone, and he's disrespecting the club. He's disrespecting the club, and that puts extra pressure on Dragusin to perform. It's a bad look for the club. It's a bad look for the player. And simply, when your own clearances can't even get outside the box when you come on to defend a lead or defend a draw, I don't think very highly also of you as a player, and that does worry me about Dragusin. But De Zerbi likes him. If I had to predict, I think he stays because of De Zerbi's comments. But if it's down to me, I would sell Radu Dragusin. We signed the wrong player. He just didn't suit the style when we signed him. It wasn't an Ange sign. It really, really weird. However, someone like, can't speak highly enough, is Kevin Danso, who's been through a lot wrongly and has been excellent. Of course, apart from that mistake against Brighton, you think, it's frustrating, put your foot for it. But apart from that, he's absolutely faultless, hasn't put a foot wrong other than that. And I really, really love him. Really solid. I view his role as being the cover centre-back. So the kind of what you call third in line and you play a back four. So he's waiting for injuries, waiting for suspensions, waiting to be introduced to the game, maybe go to back five to hold on a game. But I wouldn't have any problem with him starting. I just think that with the centre backs we've got, like Vuskovic and Van der Ven would be my preferred backline if I'm honest with you, or even Senesi. But I don't want Danso's role to be lesser because he's had a good season. But I'd keep Danso, but I don't think I'd have him as a starting centre back. I'd have him as a cover centre back with no problem with him stepping in, no problem with him starting games. And you have to keep Danso. It's as simple as that. Whatever you have to do to keep Danso. Again, I just think he's consistent, he's dependable, he's reliable, he's solid. Not necessarily the qualities of the earth. He's not this technical power, technical elite, if you like. He's not as technically strong as Romero or Van der Ven. There's no doubt about that. However, I think he's more reliable, particularly than Romero, and also in Mickey Van der Ven. And also, like, I'm going back to Romero just very briefly as well, that's the whole thing with his discipline. He's an issue. He's an issue. And I believe he's targeted wrongly by the football media. Is it, far too much. He's got far too much hate. Unfortunately, he's like an anti-Romero fan club. It's weird. But the aggression you can't rely on. But Danso, I think you can definitely rely on. So those are the centre-backs then. So there we go. Interesting. Out of the centre-backs, I would sell, just to recap, I would sell Dragusin and I would sell Romero, but I would keep Danso and Van der Ven. Reminder that we've got Vuskovic and Senesi to come in, so don't worry, we're not that short on centre-backs. Of course, Gray can play there as well. And goalkeepers, to also recap that for the last time, I would, with Vicario, sell. So I've got a few sells wrapping up there, but tell you what, there's going to be less sells when it comes to fullbacks, and I don't want to give a lot away. Pedro Porro, my favourite Tottenham player. I'm not saying he's the best Tottenham player because I don't even believe that, but I finally think Spurs fans, and I love this fan base and I love this football club, but for some reason, Porro has been a scapegoat. And I finally think people are starting to wake up and smell the coffee in the nicest possible way. Porro has been underappreciated ever since he stepped into the club. Spurs fans went mad, almost obsessively and weirdly so, to bring him into the club, begging on their hands and knees for him to join the club, begging Daniel Levy to get this deal done. And when that new signing kind of vibe, that feeling goes, then all of a sudden the pressure on Porro. What it is the guy's played so many games, so occasionally he would make, not necessarily now, but he would make a mistake because he's so good, he's relied upon so much, which means he plays so many games. So Porro gets taken advantage really of his quality and of his commitment. Porro bleeds Tottenham, right? And people go, hang on, he's Portuguese, or hang on, he wasn't through the Spurs academy. How can he bleed Tottenham? You can just tell he loves it. Blood, sweat, and tears for this football club, and that's not everything, but that's a very key ingredient for me. Always gives everything he can, flying into tackles, and I think he's genuinely improved. And do you know what? I might get hate for this or whatever, but I do not believe the narrative that he can't defend. He had issues in the past with 1v1 in particular defending. Of course he has. Would he be the first person I choose in 1v1 defending? No. But he's improving defensively. He has improved defensively under particularly Roberto De Zerbi. I believe that. And I just don't think you can replace Porro. People laugh at this, but I think he's irreplaceable. His progressive passing is irreplaceable. What he offers generally offensively with his passing and rare shots is simply irreplaceable. You can't replace it. It's unreplaceable. It's as simple as that. I think he's a very good player. And there's often, oh, is he a fullback? Is he this? Is he that? I think he's actually decent right back. And likes of Tim Sherwood, right? He wanted to be our interim manager. He would have been sold Porro if you down to him. Some of the name calling that Porro's had from names like Tim Sherwood in the media is absolutely shocking. I love Porro. He's my favourite player because of that passion, on top of the willingness to always learn and improve and the quality that he shows. It tells you a lot. Spurs fans, if you're listening, you're more entitled to your own opinion. But I would say to you, if you doubt Porro, even just the slightest, why is it? According to several top reports, such as Italian journalist Fabrizio Romano, such as Sky Sports, such as BBC Sport, all these top sources, why is it they're all saying that the two clubs at this moment in time interested in Porro are Manchester City and Real Madrid? They wouldn't want an average fullback. And lastly, I will say on Porro, and if you couldn't tell, it's an absolute keep, and I don't even need to really think or probably say that. But I speak to opposition fans. I spoke to all the opposition fans ahead of playing Tottenham, and sometimes post-match, but mainly pre-match in the opposition preview, which you guys will know here at Scarfey Spurs if you watched them. And may thank you so much if you did, by the way. But you'll know that one thing that was always mentioned, I asked, what Spurs players would you take, or what Spurs would you admire most? Like, would you take at your club? Would you admire? Sometimes they're different. You might admire a player, but you don't have the funds for them, or they're not right for your club. Pedro Porro was in the top two, I'd say 90 to 95% of the time. It was always Porro. Porro's mentioned more than Van der Ven. He's mentioned more than Romero. Mentioned more than Madison, sometimes more than Graham Bergvall combined. It was Porro, 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 because he is a really good fullback. He's a really good defender, and I simply won't have it otherwise. So it's an absolute keep for me. It's a straightforward keep for me when it comes to Pedro Porro, unless you get an astronomical offer. I think that high offer's particularly going to come from Man City, out of the two clubs he's linked with in City and Real Madrid. But by the same token, Real Madrid just have that pull. If you think a top 6 point, Tottenham is a lot, because it is a lot. The Real Madrid pull, I think, for particularly just the player to want to go to is huge. So I think there's a possibility, small possibility, that Porro does leave this summer. But again, for me, 50 million was rumoured what Man City would offer. I personally would say no to that. That might shock some of you. Next up, Destiny Udogie. Keep. It's a keep. But I don't think we can afford to keep him if his injuries continue, because we're not a charity. And it'd be wrong for me to sit here and say we need to sell him now just because of that, because I was a big advocate in us signing him. So it wouldn't be right, and it would be two-faced and hypocritical. As much as it's okay for opinions to change, I'm not that knee-jerk reaction type of guy. So I believe Doggy is decent. I still believe he can improve. I actually believe he's better when he first comes to the club to where he is now. I think injuries, of course, play a part in that. But he's had so many injuries, often the same kind of injury as well since joining the club, particularly hamstring injuries. So we really need him to stay fit. And that's why I believe Andy Robertson coming in is so key. It's why we need good depth for him, good cover. Not having Europe is key, hopefully, for him, with getting less injuries, and key if he does, to not need to constantly find a replacement. So Doggy is a keep, but one more injury, and unfortunately might have to make the difficult decision and move on. Spence I'd keep as well. I like, and I love his versatility. Left back, right back. Don't think he should have got the call up for the England squad. If I had to take my Spurs hat off, put my Spurs bias aside, or take his Spurs tinted glasses off, as others like to say. But I do like Jed Spence. I think, again, he can still improve. Again, his attitude has been questioned at times, but overall, I do really like him. Ben Davis, I think a lot of Spurs fans have agreed that Ben Davis has been here too long. But by the same token, we're all, I think, quite thankful, should be quite thankful, should say, for what he's done for the club. Because, again, we talked about Danso, defensive, dependable, reliable. You could say exactly the same things every single time. as well about Ben Davis. So, fair play to him. I really do like Ben Davis, but I don't think he's right for him to play games now. And of course, got that nasty injury, and I don't think he can play at the level that we need. So I think again that's where you have to make a difficult decision and go, player that we've had for several years and relied upon. It's hard to let go, but it is the benefit of us and the player. So Ben Davis, I would let go, but I don't think that's what will happen. This guy then Sousa, who I like, I think we can't be selling him. It's just a case of will a loan benefit him? I would say keep, because that means then that we have, well, what I would have then if it's down to me is a Doggy, Sousa, and Robinson. And if that's not enough and anybody's worried about a Doggy and Robinson getting injuries, particularly a Doggy, then Jed Spence can step in there, Van der Ven can step in there. Gray can step in there. So we've got really good cover in that position. So I wouldn't have a problem with Sousa going out on loan. I think that we've got enough depth or enough players that can play that position to be able to do so. But if it was down to me, I would probably just about keep him. Onto the midfield then, we'll pick up the pace a little bit. Yao Polinia, 50-50 for me. I think he's been key in us staying up. I think this team needs leadership. However, of course, you don't want to have a squad that's full of those over 30 that may be difficult, to move on. And with Pauline, it's difficult if we can get that price down and be open to it. But it's a real difficult one because we've got a saturated midfield. So I would say for now, avoid rather than sign. But if you'd asked me on the final game of the season, I would have said sign. But I'm really 50-50. I really like him, really want him to stay, but I'm worried about a saturated midfield. And why are we talking about it as well with Basuma? His contract expiring. Would I, give him an extension, renew it, etc., etc.? No, I wouldn't. I would let him go. Again, I think Basuma in terms of ability, I like, but his head's not always in the right place. Let's just say. And what I mean by that is he seems to get distracted and be influenced by things away from the football pitch. I don't think we can take that risk any longer as a football club in terms of some of the things he's been fined for, by the club and away from that as well. It's just even the legal things that he's done. It's just a real shame, really. But he's never really been, even in terms of ability, I think he's capable of it at his best in the right team. But we haven't really seen anything like the Basuma we signed for Brighton that we hoped would get better, but in fact has been worse, to be honest. And it looked like a great deal at the time, but not to be. Moving on to Rodrigo Bentancur, I think he really showed just how valuable he is when coming back from injury. And, Shane Mon, I like Ange Postecoglou, but Ange Postecoglou and Thomas Frank held back Bentancur's career. They turned him into a sideways, backwards midfielder compared to the risk-taking midfielder he was under Antonio Conte. Just changed his game. And like I said there, I liked Ange, but in terms of Bentancur, I believe he negatively impacted his game. Yes, he'd hardly put a pass wrong, but anyone could pass sideways and backwards. Harry Winks could do that. Oliver Skip could do that. They're, not the football club for a reason. So Bentancur, it's great to see kind of the shackles off and handbrake off and him allowed to play his game. I see Bentancur better further forward. Conor Gallagher, I mean, miserable start for him at the club. And, I don't think like super highly of him, but I do really admire his work rate. Really, really do admire his work rate. And I think, again, credit to Roberto De Zerbi for getting a tune out of him. So I actually didn't say that, but absolute keep with Bentancur, no brainer. And keep with Gallagher. He's the start, hopefully, of the change in the wage structure. Interesting to throw it all at Gallagher. Should have done so much more in January, but the goal at Villa as well will stick with me. Can he build on that? So I don't think Gallagher's the answer to our problems, but I think he's been okay under Roberto De Zerbi and decent at times even, to be fair. Now I'm going to shock people. Sell Pat Matasar. That's not a decision that I take lightly. It's not something that I like doing, but we have got a saturated midfield and we have to make difficult decisions. And I'm going to get onto it a little bit later with Bergwijn and Gray. There might be more difficult decisions, all I would say, to make. And it's horrible to do this, but we have too many midfielders. It's as simple as that. And Zaha, we just can't guarantee him the minutes. And for me, I just think he's a bit erratic. Like, as he come on the other day, back into the season, De Zerbi, and he just couldn't slow himself down. I think the last game against Everton, flies past the ball. He's almost got too much energy. I love the kind of box-to-box midfielder, and some would say we don't have anything like him. But now we've got Conor Gallagher, who offers the pressing and the energy and could be that box-to-box. I think we can afford to sell Sarr and cash in on him because I think we can get a good price for him. So, yeah, it's painful, but Spurs have to make that decision. And just like I think they have to loan out Lucas Bergwijn, which, again, I know will be unpopular, and I understand why, but we've got a load of midfielders, and I think Lucas Bergvall, let's say he has a whole season pretty much sitting on the bench or being, and hardly coming on, that's not going to do his career any good. If he goes and gets regular first team minutes, that will really help him. And the reality is, with no Europe, there'll be less minutes going around. Still, everyone I think will get minutes, get an opportunity, but I don't think Bergvall gets rightly or wrongly starts. I think he could play a key role off the bench, etc. But I'd rather him get the minutes. So yeah, Tottenham making difficult decisions like loaning Bergvall, loan with no option to buy or no obligation. Let me make that clear when it comes to Bergvall. But Sarr with a sale, and ideally a sell-on clause as well, but particularly a sale. So yeah, they're difficult decisions, but I think that's what has to be done. I honestly think that's what has to be done. But again, I repeat, it's not easy. And Archie Gray I would keep. So I'd keep Gray, and I think that's really important to do so. And he'd be in my kind of top 3, top 5 of untouchables. And I just think he's great. He's versatile, can play in lots of positions, and I don't think he still even gets the credit he deserves. I really, really like him, and I can't again speak highly enough of him. If we move into more attacking midfielders, then James Maddison's a keep. But if we're being honest about it, who's going to buy someone having just come back from injury? And Maddison, we're not going to be able to get hardly anything for him anyway. But I would make him club captain. I'd make James Maddison club captain. He's the perfect role model. He's what you want on and off the pitch, right? Fantastic footballer, a leader, I believe, great with the fans. Always gets on in connection with the manager, speaks so well as well. Like we were in the mix zone the other day for talking to Sky, spoke so well, speaks human like. He gets criticised by other rival fans for the you give more interviews and you have play games, this, that, and the other, or more goals, more interviews and goals you scored. But it's nice to have a player that doesn't sound robotic or doesn't sound like a politician. Maddison's human-like, and I think he genuinely gets it. And little things like we've done with Harley off the pitch. Of course, the club deserve a lot of credit as well. But James Maddison, I just think is a perfect role model for the club. Bringing on that fan in a wheelchair, disabled fan at the end as well. He's just class, absolute class. That's what comes to mind with James Maddison. Absolute keeper, making club captain. Kulusevski, do you remember him? I mean, goodness me, he's been injured for a long while. I mean, again, there's no real option here. It would be keep, but it's worrying when you get the Sweden national team doctor say things like, "Oh, I hope he'll play football again," or I believe he'll play football again." He's trying to be positive, but that's how serious his injury is. It's not a case of I hope he'll play next season. It's I hope he'll play football again. I'd love to see him back soon, but it's a really weird and rare injury. We must not rush him back, but state the obvious, it is a keep. Wilson, Odebear, I'd keep. I don't think, again, he's the answer to our problems. I think he's shown in glimpses what he's capable of. But again, with a lot of our wingers and attacking players, I do just think, come on, not a lot of these would get into top 6 sides. I don't think Odebear would get into a top 6 side. But again, it's not fair for me to judge him. He's got an ACL injury, so it means it's an easy keep. It just is as simple as that. Same as Simmons is going to be out for the whole season by the look of it, the majority, if not all of it. And which is a shame, of course, but Maddison missed all of this season, very similar for Simmons next season, except he was out for the back end of this season as well, and he'll be out for the summer. So you got feel for Simmons not being able to represent his nation in Netherlands and the World Cup. For a player to miss the World Cup, to miss your end of the season when it's so crucial for your club, and to miss the whole of the next season, I mean, penny for his thoughts right now must be extremely, extremely tough. But yeah, it's a keep. And it's the same with Mohamed Kudus. I'd love to have him back fit. Kudus is almost like I call him like an anomaly. We haven't really got a player like him, and that is kind of, I would say, credit to him. He just offers that something different. That's the way that I view it. So Kudus is keep. So that's kind of your defensive, central, and attacking midfield. So just to reflect, everyone is a keep, other than Sarr, who I'd sell, and Bergvall, who I'd loan. All the attacking midfielders, almost like wingers, someone says, or attacking midfielders and wingers, believe it or not, I would keep all of them, and I would avoid in extending Basuma's contract, and I would avoid signing Yao Polina. On to the forwards and striker section, starting with this man, Dominic Solanke. Keep for me, but I've been disappointed. I wanted to sign him from Bournemouth. I'll put my neck on the line here, and I did at the time. I liked him, really, really liked him, loved him, in fact. I was so happy that they brought him in, but he is really disappointed. Really disappointed compared to what I expected. So, although I would keep him, I'd say, boom, from now till January, Dom, you need to impress. Stay in the box for a start, but you need to impress. And if you don't, you're out. So, I think Solanke's future should be reviewed in January, because you don't want a big turnover this summer. As much as we need so much, as much as players need to leave, I can't stress that enough. If you do it all at once, the turnover is hard to deal with. And if you start the season badly, again, it sets you up for a bad season, or you run constantly backs against the walls for the rest of it, and it's playing a chasing kind of catch up game, and that's the thing. You start poor if your team doesn't gel, and your team doesn't gel when you bring in too many players, and it's what I call a big turnover in the squad. Solanke I'd keep; he needs to improve. Richarlison I would sell. I mean, I love his passion, and I love him. It's simple. I miss him, but he's not consistent enough when he can keep himself fit. That's our other issue as well. He can't keep himself fit the majority of the time. Way overpaid. We're not going to get anything like that back for him unless Saudi come calling. I think go back to Everton makes sense. Everton need all the attacking help they can get. So I think he should, maybe even will go back to Everton, because he, like, a big thing for him, and he spoke about it, was playing at Tottenham, it's huge because it keeps me in the Brazil World Cup squad, etc., etc. Keeps me as Brazil's number one, number nine. It's the best number nine. This, that, and the other. But the reality is he's now out of the World Cup squad, which will hurt him. So I think you have to make a change in his career. That could prompt some action, I think, anyway. But Tell, definitely not sell. I think there's two extremes with Tell, and they're both completely wrong. There's one that, oh my God, this generational kid, oh my God, he should be playing every single game. He's unbelievable, and he's one of the highest rated players. And there's that other extreme that he's been awful, and somehow we should sell him. This summer, I think both are crazy. If I may say so, and I can accept anyone's opinion, but I do think it is crazy. A loan maybe could help him get minutes potentially. I wouldn't be against the loan, but I'd opt towards keep. Rando Kolomwani, I mean, that face is how he had me feeling and looking with his time at the club. I mean, it's absolutely miserable. Apart from this moment with the away fans after his really better performance anyway against Aston Villa, it's a good team performance as well, we'll add. But it's been a car crash, and we shouldn't be signing him permanently, to state the obvious. But the price tag that he's at, oh my goodness. I mean, 63 million I heard the other day Juventus are willing to pay, or he's valued at. Does that mean what, 6.3 million or 63p, 60p pound? Or I don't want to disrespect Mwani, but he's not. I don't rate him at all. But now players out on loan. Got a picture for this one. Luka Vuskovic, really, really rate. I would keep him. If you go back to what I said earlier, I made it clear that I would sell both Romero and Dragusin. We cannot be selling. You cannot be letting go three centre-backs, even with loan/sell. You just can't have three centre-backs to leave the door in the summer. I think it's absolutely crazy to do so and only bringing one in, at least, to a minimum of one. I think with Vuskovic, I think keep him. I think the loan benefited him. Again, I wouldn't be against the loan. I'd definitely be against selling him. I wouldn't be against the loan. But I think keep him makes sense. He's pretty much ruled out going back with his brother again for another season with Hamburg. He's ruled that out, which is interesting. But I say bring his brother to Tottenham as well, and that'll keep him there and get rid of any interest from the likes of Barcelona, who constantly stiffen around. Very, very quickly then to kind of wrap it up, players that are on loan. I've not picked out them all, just picked out the key ones, because some it's not fair for me to speak about if they have hardly played a game, like one or two games this season, or I haven't seen them, or we haven't, some don't even know about. So I've just picked out the key ones. Coast Kai, I'd probably loan again. Ashley Phillips, it's a difficult one. Part of me wants to keep him here. Let's say keep, but again, I'll be anything on the table. 5 million, is it worth selling him? Probably not, though. Alfie Dorrington, I think you sell him, and he just seems to suit Scottish football, so potentially sell him there. The midfields and wingers, Yamin Hook, I would loan. Mikey Moore, I would keep. It makes the club's winger kind of summer a lot easier, and we need, for me, this is for another video, another episode, let me make that clear, but I think we need 3 forward players that we need to sign, and I'm not someone that likes to sign too much, but I think we need, of course, quality over quantity. Sometimes too little, too much. But I want to make it clear. I think that Mikey Moore should stay. I think he's improved. Now the managerial change over in Rangers, it just shows you the right manager makes a big difference. So I would keep him. Solomon, I would sell. I think it's a good opportunity to cash in on him. And forwards and strikers, Dane Scarlett, caught in two minds with this. Part of me goes, he needs an opportunity, but I think sell him potentially because is he going to get the minutes? However, Will Lancashire, I'd keep Lancashire. I'd sell Scarlett because he's 22 now, Scarlett. Valise, I would sell. He's been really disappointing since coming in. I just don't get what the point was with that. And Donnelly, I think he's going to be sold anyway. So, we'll go with sold. I think that seems what's going to happen anyway. So, there we go. Wrapped it up. So, just to reflect, the big ones that I'd kind of sell, are Romero, Dragusin, Richarlison, Sarr. They're the big ones. Loan out Bergval's probably a big call. Bring back Mikey Moore and Vuskovic. They're probably big calls. They're just some of the big ones. Let me know what you thought of everything. This is my honest opinion, not influenced by anybody. I like to speak for myself, but again, I do not speak for the podcast, to make that absolutely clear. Look forward to doing this with guests on Scarfey Spurs. Thank you very much for supporting me and supporting my podcast. Thank you very much. And let us know in the comments below. We want to hear from you. Your opinion matters. Who would you keep, loan, or sell this summer? Up the Spurs.